Have you heard of HeLa cells? The first immortal human cells cloned in 1953. They came from Henrietta Lacks, from her cervix. Not Harriet or Helen Lane, Henrietta Lacks. That was her name, although more than 30 cervical cancer samples from 30 different people with a cervix passed through Dr. G's laboratories. 30 stories, 31 counting Henrietta's. And from there to other laboratories, even into space to this very day. But do you know what happened when it was discovered which part of the body these cells came from?
Do you know what the cervix is? What it looks like? What it's for?
I found out I had HPV 55 years after the cloning of Henrietta's cells. It was in the 70s that the human papillomavirus became linked to most cervical cancers. Doctors told me that if I was monitored, I shouldn't worry. And I internalised this rule of responsibility over my present and future body with religious fervour, going year after year and then every 6 months.
Seven years later.
I am lying on my back in a room with no windows, no warmth. Me, the nurse, the gynaecologist who found precancerous cells in my cervix, surrounded by all these metallic tools and lights. Not sure if I'm there, if anybody has seen me or can hear me. They are all focused on my vagina, the doctor asking the nurse for a tool, penetrating me and shouting, "Damn, how this cuts," while a surgical saw buzzes inside me and I sink into the operating table, feeling like I can only be there by ceasing to be. The myth of the ironclad health crumbles. "We have found a cancer in your cervix," the doctor told me, 10 days after my 36th birthday. A cancer associated with this ubiquitous and unavoidable virus, sexually transmitted. The weight of the unwritten history rests on certain shoulders. The promiscuous, the whore, the filthy, the dirty. How many sexual partners have you had? Do you smoke? Have you had anal sex? How long had it been since you last got checked? Almost all sexually active people may get HPV at some point, but only a few of us will develop cancer. Why? HPV is necessary, at least in about 90% of cases, but it's not sufficient enough to understand the reasons why our cancerous cells multiply. And we use the term cervical cancer to describe different harmful processes that happen in the cervix, not all of them related to HPV. In the late 1930s, for several decades, diethylstilbestrol, or DES, was prescribed to millions of pregnant women to help prevent pregnancy complications. By the 1960s, it was known that exposure to this estrogen in the womb was associated with a range of reproductive changes and fertility problems, including rare vaginal and cervical cancers, among the now called DES daughters and granddaughters. HeLa cells have been historically used to try and establish a link between cervical cancer and a virus and are currently being used to study HPV and the development of malignancies within the cervix, among other things. Taken from the cervical cancer that killed Henrietta Lacks, currently sold by biotech companies through products derived from them, as some pharmaceuticals. Associating cancer with a virus means hope. Hope for a vaccine, a cure, a treatment, life. It also means money and business and policy and scientific careers of excellence, and funding, and looking to one side while neglecting others. At the end of the 19th century, microbiology played a key role to disseminate the idea that diseases are ontological entities defined by the action of a specific agent. Diseases have been challenging this postulate ever since, but its power relies on the fact that it reinforced a biomedical conception of health that emphasises biological analysis and technical solutions, while marginalising socio-cultural, historical, economic or political processes. And you know, I come from a place where, during a dictatorship, a petrochemical complex was installed. It is currently the largest petrochemical complex in southern Europe. I could see it, smell it, hear it, even taste its metallic taste from my house. Though chemical and toxic substances may be everywhere, in the air we breathe, in the drugs we take, in the hormones we use, the food we eat, the pans we cook, the clothes we wear, the houses we live. They are even in our beds, within our cells and the cells of our children and of those who are to come. But nobody ever mentioned it when I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Have you ever thought about the stories carried by our cervical cells? How do they constitute us? How are we challenging them?